This morning, while you were scrolling through your phone, something happened that could completely change how 1.4 billion people access the internet. A quiet switch was flipped, and in that instant, Africa reshaped the digital landscape of the world. For the first time in history, the continent has built and activated its own internet infrastructure. And this is not just about faster browsing or cheaper data bundles. This is a geopolitical earthquake. Because if you follow the digital economy, you know one thing is true. Control of the internet means control of the future. And right now, the future that Silicon Valley thought it owned is slipping out of its hands. Google, Amazon, Microsoft, the big three who have monopolized global connectivity, are suddenly staring down the most serious challenge they've ever faced. And it's not coming from China, Europe, or Silicon Valley's own startups. It's coming from Africa. The myth of the global internet. Let's get something straight. Most people think the internet is a single global free-flowing system that treats every user the same, a kind of digital commons shared by all. That's wrong. What we call the internet is actually a patchwork of private networks connected by thousands of undersea cables, data centers, and exchange points. And for the past 2 decades, nearly all of that infrastructure has been owned and controlled by Western companies. If you're in Lagos searching on Google, your query doesn't magically travel to a nearby Nigerian server. No, your request often jumps under the Atlantic Ocean, hits data centers in London or New York, and then bounces back. It's like sending a letter to your neighbor, but first mailing it to another continent. This system has 3 devastating consequences. 1. It's expensive. Africa pays some of the highest internet costs in the world. Because instead of building its own infrastructure, it's been renting from Western providers. Every megabyte comes with a hidden toll. 2. It's slow and unreliable. The longer the distance, the higher the lag. A simple video stream can feel like pulling teeth when your data has to travel across oceans. 3. It's controlled externally. Western corporations, not African governments, not African citizens, decide the rules. They own the cables, the servers, the protocols. And by extension, they hold the keys to Africa's digital future. For years, this dependency has been accepted as inevitable. Until now. The Continental Internet Exchange. The African Union has just launched the Continental Internet Exchange, CIX, and it changes everything. This is not just another internet service provider. This is a parallel internet infrastructure, built from the ground up, controlled by Africans, and completely bypassing Western dominance. Think of it this way. Imagine Africa has been paying tolls to use foreign-owned highways for decades. Every trip, every shipment, every journey cost money and time. Now, instead of paying, Africa has built its own vast highway network, owned collectively, maintained internally, and designed for its own people. Except in this case, the highways aren't roads. They're fiber optic cables, massive data centers, and digital exchange points linking 54 nations together. The scale is jaw-dropping. Over 100,000 kilometers of fiber optic cable laid across the continent. 47 state-of-the-art data centers strategically positioned. Major exchange points established in every African capital and economic hub. When someone in Nairobi wants to watch a video hosted in Cape Town, the data doesn't cross into Europe or the US anymore. It travels directly through Africa's own system. Faster, cheaper, and sovereign. This is not a pilot program. This is a continental-scale infrastructure, rivaling what Google, Amazon, or Microsoft built globally over decades. The secret weapon. The African Digital Protocol. But the real disruption isn't just the hardware. It's the software running on top of it. The African Digital Protocol, ADP, is the foundation of this new internet. And here's the kicker. It's not compatible with the traditional internet protocols controlled by the West. It's like creating a brand new digital language. One that African systems speak fluently, but Western systems can't use without major changes. And that's where Google's nightmare begins. For 20 years, Google's empire has rested on one thing: control of search. They designed the indexing systems, they set the standards, and they became the gateway to information for billions of people. But the African Digital Protocol doesn't use Google's system. It runs on something called distributed knowledge mapping, a search architecture built to prioritize African languages, African sources, and African perspectives. When you search African history on CIX, you're not wading through Western-centric algorithms that push colonial narratives to the top. Instead, you access databases built by African universities, researchers, and institutions. The results come in Swahili, Hausa, Zulu, Yoruba, whatever the local context demands. For the first time in history, Africa is writing its own story online, and doing so in its own voice. An entire digital ecosystem search is only the beginning. The Continental Internet Exchange has rolled out a complete suite of services, each one an alternative to Google's empire. Email that runs on African servers, cloud storage designed for African businesses, video platforms to rival YouTube, advertising networks built for local markets priced in local currencies. Every single Google service now has an African alternative, faster, cheaper, and tailored to local needs. The money equation. The economic impact is staggering. Right now, African nations spend over $50 billion a year on digital services provided by Western companies. That's $50 billion leaving the continent annually, enriching Silicon Valley shareholders. Now with CIX, that money stays home. It flows into African tech companies, African engineers, African data centers. Every dollar circulates through the local economy, creating jobs, building expertise, and funding innovation. This is what economists call a multiplier effect. Instead of draining wealth, the system reinvests it, over and over inside Africa. What used to be a digital trade deficit has suddenly flipped into an engine of growth. Timing is everything. And here's the most brilliant part. The timing of this launch is no accident. Africa is the youngest continent in the world. Over 60% of its population is under 25. These are digital natives, people who grew up on smartphones and social media. But until now, they've been forced to use platforms designed by and for Western users. The CIX changes that. For the first time, young Africans have tools that reflect their own cultures, their own languages, and their own needs. The response has been explosive. Within just 3 days of launch, over 200 million people switched to the Continental Internet Exchange as their primary internet. That's faster adoption than Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok saw in their early days. And the reason is simple. It works better. Google's crisis. Google is in panic mode, but this time it has no easy playbook. Normally, when a competitor arises, Google either buys them out or copies their technology. But here, neither strategy works. The African Digital Protocol is open source, but it's specifically designed to operate only within the CIX infrastructure. For Google to compete, it would have to build its own parallel internet from scratch, an undertaking that could cost hundreds of billions of dollars and take decades. By then, Africa's ecosystem will be entrenched, its digital sovereignty secured. Global shockwaves. And make no mistake, the world is watching. Other regions are asking hard questions. If Africa can build its own sovereign internet, why not Latin America? Why not South Asia? Why not the Middle East? The myth of Western monopoly over digital infrastructure has been shattered. For the first time in the internet age, the balance of power is shifting. Not through war, not through diplomacy, but through code, cables, and servers. A new digital future. This isn't just a tech story. It's a story of independence, of sovereignty, of reclaiming control over the most important resource of the 21st century: information. Africa has shown the world that digital empires are not invincible, that even the mightiest corporations can be disrupted, and that when a continent unites, it can not only catch up with the future, it can redefine it. The internet you thought you knew is gone. The next chapter of the digital age has begun, and it's being written not in Silicon Valley, but in Africa.